Welcome everyone to the select board meeting of the town of Walpole. Today is November 10th, 2020. Time being 7 p.m. We're going to get started with our meeting, and as we do, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we'll remind everybody that the members are participating remotely during the meeting tonight due to the unprecedented time in the Commonwealth. The governor has authorized remote participation. Public boards due to the emergency declaration order issued on March 12th, 2020, and every vote will be taken by a roll call vote. So we'll get right into it tonight, being that the time is 7:01 p.m. and we have a public hearing for the tax classification. I see we have Mr. Fliss and Mr. Fisher with us to begin the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the tax classification public hearing.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Mark. So we have a motion and a second. We'll proceed with the roll call vote to open the public hearing on tax classification. Nancy?
Aye.
David Salvatore?
Aye.
Hello, David.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Mark?
Aye.
Jim? Aye. And Ben, aye. 5-0-0. The motion passes. We are now in a public hearing for the tax classification, determination of the residential factor for tax rates. So, Jim Johnson, could you start us off here? And I know, as I said, Mr. Fisher and Mr. Fliss are with us, but perhaps, Jim, you could start us off.
This is the yearly, tax setting, the classification that's done just about this time every year, and right up to town meeting. We need to get it done before the early December so we can get the information into the state. And each year, Jack and Dennis come before your board to just basically set the rates. What's being proposed at this time is to basically keep the split the same. Late this evening, we received a letter from the EDC recommending that your board I'll read it into the record. As such, at the November 10th, 2020 meeting, the EDC was in support of maintaining the existing tax-based split between the residential class of properties to the commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. The EDC is opposed to increasing the tax burden on the latter tax classes. Furthermore, the EDC is in a position that future tax classifications should be improved to better support creation of new businesses and help maintain existing businesses in Walpole who provide vital services with our community. So bottom line, EDC is recommending to keep the split. So is the Board of Assessors. And with that, Jack, if you don't mind, Ben, could I hand it off to Jack to get into the details?
No, that's great. I would just start by saying that Jack and Dennis, the Board of Assessors, and Mr. Fliss have prepared a very detailed informational packet that we're going through tonight that gives all the background on the split, how it comes about, how we set the tax rate here in Walpole, and it's incredibly helpful. So thank you, as always, to both of you for putting this together. And Mr. Fisher, please go ahead.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to come before you. With me tonight is Dennis, Bob Bushway, and Ed O'Neill. So the full board is here, as well as Dennis, our Director of Assessing. Mike, if I could ask you, could you share? Can I share my screen? I just want to bring something up quickly.
Absolutely, Jack. You can share it from your side.
Hold on. Can you see that now?
No.
No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You may have to highlight whatever it is you're going to show.
Okay, can you see it now?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
This is normally a handout that we give you at the start of the hearing, but we didn't include it in the package. It's just to give you a little bit of an overview. Most people are pretty much aware that when we go ahead and the big question is, what am I going to pay in taxes? And most people know that what you're going to pay in annual taxes is your individual property assessment based in thousands times the residential tax rate. The real issue, and this is what we're here for tonight to talk about, is how is the residential tax rate determined? And there's three components, there's three elements that go into that. First is the planned expenditures, and that's determined by the town. It's the tax levy, it's by town meeting, if for normal expenditures, and then you've got, you may have an override in some cases. Then you've got the total assessed valuation. That's determined by the Board of Assessors and certified by the Mass Department of Revenue. And then finally, it's the policy decision that you're here to make tonight, which is the residential factor. Mass General Law allows cities and towns to shift some of the residential tax burden to commercial and industrial. We've done this for about 20 years. And I believe it's for the last 6 or 7 years, the shift has been 1.275. With that shift, okay, the rate for 2021 would be 1484. We have some interesting figures down here. If you want to look at the average assessed value per property class, the average residential house in Walpole is $556,000. The average commercial property is 1.161 million, and the average industrial is 847 and change for assessed values for 20 and 21. They have gone up in the order of 4 to 5%. The assessed value, the average tax bill using that current shift of 1.275. You can see over here residentials on average for the average assessed value, property value would go up 281. Average commercial would go up quite a bit more at $719, and average industrial would be about almost a little slightly under $700. So on average, your tax bills are going to go up between 3 to 4% for the year. And this is just to kind of set the stage. It's a 30-page plus packet. I'm not going to go through every page. I would ask the board, do you have the packet in front of you? Or do I have to bring up the slides?
Oh, no, I have it. We all have it on hand.
Okay.
Oh, please.
All right. What I'll do then is I'll refer to particular pages, point some things out, and then I'll open it to any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you.
Okay. On page 2, it talks about what the residential shift is. All right. And if we were a single tax rate town, the single tax rate would be $15.47 per thousand. With a split tax rate at the current shift, it'd be around $14.84. With the shift as it is right now, the average residential taxpayer is paying about $350 less. I'd suggest we go to page 4. And this is interesting. We talk about industrial and commercial properties in Walpole, and yet what we're doing is we're talking about 87% of taxable property in Walpole is residential. And with a shift, it'll go down to 83%. There'll be less because some of that some of that taxes are going to get shifted to the commercial. I'd ask that you go to page 6 quickly. This is where we calculate the levy limit. Walpole for literally decades has raised their taxes to the levy limit. The calculation of the levy limit is really straightforward. It's what the tax levy was last year, plus 2.5%, plus new growth, plus any adjustments for overrides. And so if you want to follow it through, last year for the levy limit, it was $71,197,000 and change. Okay, with the 2.5% increase to it, with new growth, the levy limit last year was $74,507,681. To calculate it for 2021, it's the same one. You start with the new base of 74,507. You add to that the 2.5%. You add to it the new growth, and you get a new levy limit of $78,212,188. Okay, and this is how it's done year after year after year. It's the previous year's levy limit plus 2.5% plus new growth. One of the things that happens over the course of the year is when the budgets are first being established, which was at the almost a year ago, we have to make an estimate of what that new growth will be. And we make adjustments as the year goes on. We talk to the town administrator, and we will update that new growth number, which factors into what the levy limit will be, which will affect the budgeted amounts as we go through the year. I'd ask you to turn to page 8. A little bit on the levy limit, and I'm sorry, the new growth, how it was broken out this year. What you can see is that single-family homes, the increase in assessed value for single-family homes due to new construction, new growth was slightly under $19 million. For condominiums, it was a little bit over $10 million. For apartments, given all the new construction that's happening in the center of town, it was almost $49 million. And on the right-hand side is the amount of tax dollars that we can expect in revenue from each one of the categories of new growth. Total new growth, though, if you add them all up, is the 1.841,815 for additional tax revenue. I'll point you to an eye chart, page 11. This is where we talk about the shift going down the most left-hand column, and the second column in is the residential factor. This is what you'll actually be voting on tonight, the residential factor. It's a weighted reciprocal, and that's how the Department of Revenue requires us to report the shift. On page 15, sorry, 13, jumped ahead. Okay, for single-family dwellings, residential properties. Okay, at the very top line this is what was the situation for last year, 2020. The average assessment was $531,920, tax rate of $1491 with an average tax bill of $7,973. And the shift that we had last year was 1.275. We have various scenarios here starting from 1.1 to 1.5 for a shift. And you can see what the various differences would be if we were to adopt different shifts. Bolded in the middle is the 1.275, which is the shift that the town has adopted for the last 8 or 10 years. Okay, with a resulting tax rate of 1484, with an increase in the average tax bill of $280. On page 15, 2 pages farther along, this is the impact on commercial and industrial properties. With a shift that we've used in the past of the 1.275, the average commercial property will increase and have a tax increase of $719, and the average industrial property will be $694. On page 18, one of the questions that often comes up is how do we compare to surrounding communities? And here's for Norfolk County. Walpole's bolded at the top we have a shift in there of 1.28. Is that a rounding error, Dennis? Rounding issue? I think it rounded up to 1.28. It should be 1.275. But you can see most of the communities in Norfolk County are either very high or very low. There's only a few that are in the middle like us. Page 19, one of the questions we often have is what are the top 10 taxpayers in Walpole? And so here are the top 10. and they're paying about $6 million, a little over $6 million in taxation. And that's, those are the highlights. I can tell you that the Board of Assessors met, and we voted unanimously to recommend that we maintain the same shift of 1.275. So if there's any questions at all, any comments, anything that we can answer for you, we'd be happy to do it. The whole board is here and Dennis is here.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher. And I know there's a lot of information, very fast, and it can seem complicated, but the math itself, even though they try to make it difficult with the reciprocals, is actually very straightforward. So please do reach out if anyone watching at home has additional questions on this. So thank you again, Mr. Fisher and Mr. Bushway and Mr. O'Neill for joining us tonight. At this point, we'll open it up to the board to run through any questions or comments that board members may have. So why don't we start with Nancy, please?
No questions. I think you guys did a great job. I actually think it's super that the EDC voted to support your recommendation. If you want to come back to me around, I'll close the public meeting.
Great. Great. Thanks, Nancy. David, any comments or questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Mark?
I would just say, Jack, Bob, Ed, as always, you've done a great job. I appreciate that you sent the packet out to us ahead of time so we had a chance to read through it. Appreciate that. I don't have any questions. It's very straightforward from my perspective. And I agree we should keep the shift the same as it is now and the way you've recommended. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Jim O'Neill?
Yeah, likewise, I agree with the recommendation from the board and the assessor. And also the EDC. I think we keep the shift the way it is. Seems to be working pretty well that way. And I likewise would like to thank the board for the good work they did putting this together and getting it out ahead of time. It's there's a lot of really interesting and valuable information here. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just echo what Jim said. And also at the base level for this, it really is, as Mr. Fisher described at the beginning, that the residential shift is something that the select board is discussing now and voting on, that expenditures and the budget goes to town meeting every year, and that the assessments for properties is a decision of the Board of Assessors. So it's really those three different entities come together, and that's what actually decides the tax rate every year is those three separate entities. And we have a hand raised here, so we'll go to Donnell Murphy. Would like to comment. Mike, if you could let Donnell.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hey, Donnell, go ahead, please.
Donnell Murphy here, member of the EDC. We did have a meeting tonight on it and discussed it and felt that that we would like to see the shifts stay the same. So I'm glad that both the selectmen and the assessors are looking at the issue in the same face. The EDC feels that with the limited amount of commercial space that we have, that it's very important that we be able to attract as many businesses as we can. And we think that by keeping the rate as low as we can would help bring and be competitive to the neighboring towns in terms of getting businesses into Walpole, which during this crisis and what we're going through is very important. So I'm glad to see the shift stay it is, and I think the EDC is trying to make as much they can, or trying to do as much as they can to promote businesses and bring businesses to town. And this is one of those avenues. Thank you.
Thanks, Donnell.
Great, thank you, Donnell. So there is no one else from the public here to comment. So we could entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim O'Neill?
Aye.
And Ben Barrett, aye, 500.
I'll make a motion to adopt the shift of 1.275 with a residential factor of 0.9595 for the fiscal year 2021.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go through a roll call vote on the shift number itself. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim O'Neill?
Aye.
And Ben, aye, 500. The motion passes.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator to submit the results of this hearing on behalf of the select board to the Massachusetts Division of Local Services Gateway System.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Proceed to a roll call vote to submit the decision tonight. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim O'Neill?
Aye.
And Ben, aye, 500. The motion passes. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again to everyone on the board, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Fliss, not only for putting that information together, but for coming here tonight to answer questions. Really appreciate all that you do in this regard. So thank you again. All right, so we will move on to the second item of business under appointments for this evening. We have with us Ashley Clark, the Community Development Director for the town of Walpole. Oh, there you are, Ashley.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How is everyone?
Good. So we had asked Ashley to come and be with the select board tonight and give us a quick update, really just a status of 40B projects here in Walpole. And we've heard a lot about from town meeting, talking about the inclusionary zoning bylaw. We've heard a lot on social media about the various projects around town. We thought it was a good idea that the board would be up to date on the latest and greatest status of the 40B projects in town. So I'd asked Ashley just to run through. I know that there are 4 40Bs currently before the town, and one that is currently just a PEL, but likely will be a 40B at some point. So Ashley, if you could just walk us through those 5 projects, just a brief update on status of each one, and then we'll just go to the board and any members can ask questions or comment as they'd like to.
Sure. So I'll start with the Pinnacle Point project, which is the project we have not received an application for. It's for 40 units, and the board issued a letter to Mass Housing with its comments dated July 24th, 2020. So to date, I have nothing new on that project. So that one's probably simplest. The next project we have is Dupey Street. That project is currently being reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That would be for 12 units off Dupey Street, which is a small little street off Route 27. So the ZBA is currently reviewing that. They've approved peer review scopes. So the board will work through kind of the different things associated with that project. And again, that's for 12 like duplex home ownership units. We also received an application at 270 Moose Hill Road. That project is for 8 units in a total of 4 buildings. And that hearing we need to schedule to open. That was submitted under the state of emergency, so we've deferred opening that hearing. The next project is Burns Avenue. So Burns Avenue is a little bit complicated. The zoning board approved a project that had 32 home ownership units on it. It then went to appeal with the HAC, where it's still at. We've not heard back from the HAC on that. The applicant had some concerns with the conditions that the board put on that permit. And then the applicant has since submitted a revised project to increase the size from 32 to 40 units, which would include a connection to Brook Lane. So that hearing on that second portion is slated to open November 18th. And then Cedar Edge, the Summer Street project, is for 300 units. The zoning board took testimony from many town departments yesterday. It was super appreciative. Folks made time at very short notice to come and give comments to the board, which I think is super helpful. So the board is continuing to review that project, and we'll take it up again on November 30th. So that's kind of the quick version of it. I would like to just share with you a website, if I could share my screen really quickly. Here we go. Okay, so we work really hard to put as much information online as possible. So if anyone wants to know something, basically you would just go to, so this is the home page. You go to departments, over to community development, and then there's a tab here that says 40B housing projects. So that's one way to get to it. Another option is you can just type in your browser walpole-ma.gov and then /40B, and it'll bring you straight to this page, so you don't have to go through all the other links. But on this page there's a lot of information. So if you were interested in the Summer Street project, you would just go here. And then what we've done is you have all of the materials that have been submitted to the board. So the original submittal, the revisions. So it goes from oldest at the top, the newest on the bottom. And then you also have basically, we've got the date that the hearing happened with a link to the agenda, the minutes that were approved, and a link to the recorded meeting. And there's just a little blurb to let you know kind of what was covered at that meeting. So if you wanted to know, okay, what happened on design and engineering peer review, you would know to go to that agenda. We also post all the letters from town departments, peer review submittals, and then we're also posting all the public comment letters that are submitted. So I think this is a really important resource for folks to know about. So I just wanted to plug it. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Ashley, for running through that. It's very informative, and I do want to highlight for anybody that is watching this or might watch it in the future that webpage, as Ashley detailed, is phenomenal. It contains so much information, and the town spends a lot of time. Ashley herself spends a lot of time keeping that updated with all the latest links, information, submittals, peer reviews, anything that might be relevant to one of the 40Bs going on in town.
I will say, I rely very heavily on Amy, our board clerk, to help me keep that updated. So she's done, I think, an excellent job. She was off yesterday, and during the hearing, she was like posting things to that site. So it's really important to both of us that that's updated.
Yeah, Amy Messier absolutely does a fantastic job as well. And I think it highlights, honestly, to the board how much time, effort, and capital the town spends on these projects, and how much it takes up in the efforts that the town puts forward. So real quick, Ashley, I'm just going to go around to the rest of the board members here for any questions or comments. If we could start, Nancy, with you, please.
I just want to thank you. I mean, I know there's so much going on and so much to stay on top of with the rules changing constantly for everything every day. You know, you really have been very helpful. I've heard a lot of feedback from people South Walpole, all over Walpole, but how responsive you've been and helpful in really trying to get information to and from, as far as all of them, but especially the 40B in South Walpole. So just thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. David Salvatore?
I'm all set.
Okay. Mark?
I would just say, Ashley, thanks for all your hard work on this project. I really do appreciate the 40B page being available off the front page of the Walpole website. I think that's very helpful. And I also want to say that I think the ZBA is doing a great job working through all of the issues which are constantly changing. You know, as you look through the Summer Street project page, you know, it starts back in January of 2019, 2020. And there's a huge amount of information that's there. I watched yesterday's meeting, lots of changes going on, and I appreciate them grinding through the process. I know South Walpole and other people in Walpole are very worried about the impact that this will have on the town. And I appreciate you and the ZBA working through trying to get all the best conditions possible for Walpole. And it's hard for most people to understand that the state 40B program allows a developer to bypass most of local zoning. And I think it's important for people to understand that we have very little say, and any say we get will happen from the ZBA based on feedback from not only this board, but all the department heads and the public. So I encourage people to keep providing feedback, stay current. I know you have a meeting on November 30th, which I think everybody will want to watch, but it's a long, hard process, and I appreciate everybody's work.
Thank you, Mark. Jim O'Neill?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. This is one of the areas that I get the most questions on, and so it is great to see all the information out on the website and how easy it is to navigate to the website to get the information. So I'm glad to see that, and Ashley, thanks for taking us through that today. Yeah, as Mark said, this is a frustrating process for us because of the way the 40B process sort of steps around our local zoning. We don't have a lot we can say about it, and I appreciate all the good work from all the department heads and the boards and committees working with the ZBA to provide input, all of which you can see on the website, to hopefully shape these developments to the best advantage we possibly can, recognizing that we really don't have a lot of control over this stuff. Part of the reason that I was supporting the inclusionary zoning bylaw at the last town meeting. So it is helpful to have all this information. I got a couple of calls last week from folks down in South Walpole that were just questioning the whole process. And you can see the process on the website. You can read through the documents and see the feedback. The notes that we have been putting together across all 4 of these so far, and soon to be a 5th, which is the letter from the select board to the state, is comprehensive. And I always appreciate the great work that goes into that memo from the department heads and the other boards and committees, because it is comprehensive, and it does, I think, nicely lay out the perspective that we have around what we're trying to accomplish here and minimize the impacts of these 40Bs to the extent that we can. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that falls on deaf ears most of the time, but the effort is made and it's out there for the public to see. So Ashley, thanks again for bringing it to us today, so the people of town can see it and can go out there and look at it themselves. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And to put the highlight again on the resources that the town expends in order to manage and focus on and respond to all of these 40Bs, the various iterations of the drawings that take place, it really is burdensome on the towns. And so we really appreciate everyone's work, from all the department heads to you, Jim Johnson, and obviously Ashley and Amy, as we had talked about. It was almost a year ago to the day that we had our representative delegation from the state, senator and representatives, into a select board meeting. And one of the issues that we talked about was 40B. And at that time, I believe we only had three permits. Now we have 4. And so I think it's something that would be good to bring before the board again, to ask our representatives to come in, have a conversation about the issues that are impacting the town. As I said, it's been a year since we did that, and see what headway, if any, has been made. I know the last time we talked with our representatives, there was a lot of discussion from them about establishing housing trust funds and bringing the power back to the towns to really be able to make the change in the towns when places such as Walpole have a housing partnership, they have a housing production plan, they're trying to pass new zoning laws, and they're showing that they're proactive to give towns the power and the ability to make use of those funds. So maybe we'll do that here at another meeting in the coming months to get another update on that process. But thank you again, Ashley, for being
Sure.
with us tonight. Give us an update. Please do keep us appraised of how everything is going with the 40Bs. I know that they come to us first via the Pell letters, so we'll keep an eye on that. Thanks again.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night. All right, moving on to new business. First item under new business is a request of Prestige Walpole on Providence Highway for Keno license. Jim Johnson is all of the paperwork. Everything I see, what's in the packet here, everything's in order there for them. Oh, you're muted, Jim.
Sorry about that. Yes, and I believe, I think it's Scott who's here. Eva, is that someone from Prestige was gonna come here to present?
Yeah,
the request.
I'm Scott. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Scott. Scott, do you want to just talk to the board what you guys are proposing? I know initially Aoife and I really didn't know much about this until we spoke to you guys. I wanted the board to hear firsthand what you're looking to do. And I had some concerns, but they were put at ease after you guys talked us through it, so.
Sure. So we're looking to get a Keno license there. Nothing that's going to be the live Keno. So there wouldn't be any customers hanging around the store or hanging around the parking lot. So just a basic getting a lottery ticket and just picking the Keno numbers. So that way it's in, it's out, it's really easy.
Okay.
And that was what my concern was, Ben. When we first saw it, we thought there was going to be some seating area, but it's the Keno to go, which is relatively new, I think, in the last few years. So.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Scott, for coming in and talking to us tonight, giving us that rundown. At this point, I'd open it up to the board members if anyone has any questions or comments. I don't see that there is any, and being that there is not a vote necessary for this item, we'll move on. Jim Johnson, unless you have another comment.
No, like we explained here, the vote's only required if the board objects to this. So.
Yeah, fantastic. So being that there's no further comment from the board, Scott, thank you for coming in tonight. And the board has no further action on this, on your license application. So
thank you so much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, item 2 under new business is a vote to open the spring 2021 town meeting warrant.
I'll make a motion to open the spring 2021 town meeting warrant.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim O'Neill?
Aye.
Ben, aye, 5-0-0.
And my only note or comment on that is we anticipate a closure on 1/12. This will leave it open for a couple of months. And that'll allow us to kind of work with town council for a couple of weeks. And I'd like to address some of the items as part of my budget message before the beginning of February. So that'll give us enough time. But right now there's roughly about 14, 15 articles, which are standard boilerplate articles. At least now residents can get any petitions in that they'd like.
Great, thanks, Jim. Yeah, and we'll make sure to share that information far and wide that the warrant is open, and we can work it from there. Great, so item number 3 under new business is a vote to approve the 2021 meeting schedule for the select board.
Make a motion to approve the 2021 meeting schedule for the select board.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there's no further discussion, proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. The motion passes 5-0-0.
I'll make a motion to sign the letter to the governor in relation to the Home for the Little Wanderers.
I'll second that.
And I will just append to that motion the ability for myself or Jim to make slight revisions to that letter based upon the meeting that occurred this past Friday between Walpole Police Department and the Home for Little Wanderers, just so that the letter is current with the latest information.
I'll make that my motion.
I'll resecond that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. We'll proceed with the roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. 5-0-0. The motion passes.
I'll make a motion to renew the 2021 parking lot, hotel, motel, lodging house, common vicular only, class 1, class 2, class 3, motor vehicle, automatic amusement device licenses as listed in the document attached and have the board's official signatures digitally scanned.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion from the board, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye, 5-0-0.
And just one comment under that, I just want to say, Aoife has been great on this. She stayed on top of everything. This is the earliest we've gotten all these out and renewed. So great work on this one.
Great, yeah, thank you, Jim. Definitely, Aoife. Thank you for all your hard work on that.
I'll make a motion to vote to sign the letter of support for the 2020 Open Space and Recreation Plan.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment from the board? Yes, Jim O'Neill.
Just quickly, I thought that was a pretty outstanding piece of work. It's 80 pages of a lot of detail that goes into all kinds of things, from the mission statement, of course, all the way through the recreation, but also gets into, what we've got with the water requirements here in town. It goes through a lot of the discussion about, businesses and business zoning. There's a lot of history in there. There's discussion about the topography of the town, the ponds, the streams, the dams. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It was just a fascinating document to read. And I just thought it was extremely well written. And I appreciated the fact that at the end we had the number of very specific recommendations with, the near term and the longer term associated with each. And I guess what I wanted to suggest, Ben, is if from time to time, I don't know what that means, but, every 6 months or a year, that we have an update on the progress being made against that plan, because there's a lot of things in it that are relatively near term, a lot longer term too. But I think it's important for us to, keep an eye on that. Anyway, it was just a really good piece of work. So I just wanted to make sure I commented on that.
And Ben, if you don't mind, I know I see that Landis just got on. I sent her a link just a few minutes ago. Landis has done a great job on this one, taking the lead with us. She's been working with the MAPC, Josh Bala. They've been doing a great job helping us put this all together. Justin Monta, our park superintendent, Drew Hand, Glenn Maffey's participated, Rick Mattson, Sarah Katib, Brendan Croak, Kerry from the COA, Mike Yanovich, Gary Riggett, Jack Wiley, Roger Turner still helping out. It's Jim's right, and I just want to make sure I cover everyone who's participated in this. We've had a couple of public input sessions. It was one of my last meetings before COVID hit back in February and March. We had a second public input session on October 1st. So we've tried to do as much outreach here, but Landis has really taken the lead on this one, and I'm appreciative of the work she's done.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. Landis, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the conversation and discussion we have here?
Hi, good evening. It's Landis Hershey, Conservation Agent. How are you? Jim, thank you for your kind words. I agree, it's an outstanding document this time around. Thanks to MAPC, who put a lot of work in it. Walpole's been great over the years. We've had an open space and recreation plan. I know dating back to 1987, but I believe it's further back. Walpole's always been very committed to open space and conservation and recreation, passive and active. So it's great to see yet another open space and recreation plan that highlights all the wonderful areas that we have in town. We got a tremendous response from the survey that we put out of people wanting to know more about the areas. That's one of the things that we have to target is education and getting the word out that we have these wonderful trails and natural areas in Walpole and ponds to fish and really a lot of really great resources, I would say. Thank you for reviewing it. All the information is still on the Conservation Commission website. The draft is, and the survey, and some other supporting documents. So now it goes to Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Conservation Services, and they'll review it to make sure that we've covered all the information required for the open space plan. And then when they approve it, or they may ask for us to tweak here and there, and we'll do that, whatever they require. Then the town will be eligible for certain grants from the state, for recreation grants and conservation grants. Good opportunity for the town. So if anyone has questions, I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Landis. It is a huge undertaking, as everyone has said, so I won't regurgitate all of the comments that have been made, but it's fantastic. And these are the types of documents and town-wide efforts that really make a difference. So thank you for that. And as you mentioned, and I'd highlight the opportunity then for the town to get grants and other money associated with this. So when we put in the time and effort, put together a detailed document such as this, it really opens a lot of doors for the town to further our open spaces. So thank you again. Being that there is no further comment, we have a motion and a second. We'll proceed with our roll call vote to approve the open spaces plan. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye, 500, the motion passes. Thank you again, Landis, for joining us tonight and giving us that information. Really appreciate your work.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Have a good night. We'll move to the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept with gratitude the following donations. Walmart to the police department for Halloween trunk and treat candy valued at $325. Anonymous gifts to the Council on Aging totaling $125. The Walpole Pharmacy to the Council on Aging for $100. An AFSCME Local 1957 to the Veterans Services donation, $500.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Being that there is no further discussion, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. The motion passes 500.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2020 as presented in our packet.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Being that there is none, proceed with a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. The motion passes 500. Jim Johnson.
Just a few items to close out the report. Corona update. Here's where we stand. We have 388 total confirmed positive cases in Walpole. 368 of those have completed monitoring and closed out. That leaves us with 20 current cases undergoing monitoring. We're closely monitoring the state's, the Walpole status with the state. Just last week, the state changed the way they calculate the metrics. With that change, Walpole was able to avoid being in the red. Right now, we're actually in the green. Melissa has taken the proactive steps to bring in an inspector to conduct routine inspections as well as COVID-19 inspections in an attempt to address the increase in numbers and kind of stay ahead of the curve as much as possible. She's doing a great job in her role as the Board of Health Director. Solid waste and recycling. Russell Disposal was recently bought out by a company called Boston Carting Services. Over the next few weeks and months, residents will start to see the name of the truck changes. The current drivers and workers are kept on by Carting Services, so no changes there. Everybody knows the routes, the days will remain the same. You'll just see the changes in the trucks. Speaking of solid waste, the recycling contract is up in just about 1.5 years. Melissa and I have already started working to discuss how to proceed after the end of next fiscal year. 4 years ago, I learned a valuable lesson that solid waste is very, very sensitive and very dear to many people's hearts. So I'd like to start the discussion early with the Select Board and the Board of Health and start to gather as much input as possible before deciding what to do once the contract expires and we put everything out to bid. I anticipate that Melissa and I will come before your board and the Board of Health before the end of this year to start to lay out some groundwork as to how your board and the Board of Health wants to proceed going forward. I'll probably look for some type of a subcommittee with Select Board members, Board of Health members, part of our solid waste and recycling committee people, maybe a few other members. I just want as much input before we make a formal recommendation to your board to award a contract, probably around this time next year or something like that. Green communities, we've been working on the Green Communities Initiative for the last few months. In order to achieve this designation, Walpole needs to meet 5 criteria. Just wanted to give you an update on each of the criteria. Criteria 1 is the town needs to confirm that our existing zoning meets the criteria. We have confirmed that, and that one's completed. Criteria 2, KP Law needs to send in a letter to the state advising them that we meet all of the requirements. That was completed last week. Criteria 3 is a baseline for Mass Energy Insight, auditing our buildings, identifying potential projects that will result in a 20% reduction in our baseline energy use, and putting together an energy reduction plan. This is currently underway. We are working with a company by the name of Guardian and the MAPC, and we're waiting their audit results in the near future. Criteria 4, I just actually finished a draft this afternoon. That's a fuel efficiency policy. I've asked department heads and school officials to review the draft and provide me with some feedback. Your board will need to approve that policy. And criteria 5 is a stretch code, which was adopted on October 17th by town meeting. So I'm hoping I have enough feedback and input by your next meeting on the 24th to have it ready to go. And last but certainly not least, Veterans Day is obviously tomorrow, and due to COVID, the Veterans Day ceremony and the committee will not be open to the public. The ceremony will be broadcast on Walpole Media, air on Comcast Channel 8 and Verizon Channel 11, along with on the YouTube channel for Walpole Media Corp. Starting at 11 a.m. I'd like to thank all the veterans here in Walpole and around the country for their service, and I'll take any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Jim. All right, why don't we just go around for any comments or questions? Anybody from the board? No comments, no questions. I would also like to just add on, Jim, to what you said, and a thank you to Melissa Ranieri and her, the whole staff with the Board of Health and the Board of Health for all the work they've done, obviously throughout the COVID period, but also with this issue with switching over the companies. And I couldn't agree more on the solid waste question and the recycling. Arguably, it's the biggest service that the town offers besides education. So certainly, and understandably, people are very interested in that and will be. So certainly planning ahead is the prudent action. So thank you. Great. Being that there is no further discussion, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed as we do with the roll call votes. Nancy?
Yes.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye, 5-0-0. The motion passes. We are adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.